You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
Now, I know I have brought up Joker, or is it The Joker or Joker? It's just Joker, like Coldplay and U2?
I mean, I guess. Like, I don't actually...
The new superhero? No, backstory, origin story of Joker?
Uh-huh.
I think it's just Joker.
Just Joker.
Yeah, just Joker to
Just
you, Lisa.
Joker. We discussed, because the director has made some odd comments and blah, but I have to say there's one trope I really wish Hollywood would get rid of, and it is this one. To make this man's life look the most pathetic way they can, they throw this out. Lives with his mother. That is our sign that he's nearly becoming Norman Bates.
Mm-hmm,
Well, it's funny because in the previous film, Lynn Ramsey's You Were Never There, he also lived with his mother. And he also was played by Joaquin Phoenix and was ostensibly not quite right.
Yeah, and I am so
This is a weird
tired,
trope. Yeah.
so tired of having to see a woman, a mother, trying to do her gosh darn best because her son's flailing out there, and to be turned into, I guess you would say, like the sorceress of evil, because she's obviously created this person's sociopathic tendencies.
Well, it's been a long time. You know, you can thank old Siggy Freud for that, but also Hitchcock as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
Oedipus had a
timing-
few things to say, too,
Oh, yeah,
about
that's
that.
true.
Like, let's go back
Yeah,
and
that
take
guy.
it way back to... But, I mean, truly, like, we see this all the time with, like... when we talk about serial killers all the time, they're always just like,
Mother issues.
Mother
Yeah.
issues. But
Yeah.
they never talk about the absentee fathers. They never talk about like what toxic masculinity has done to these people, which is actually the problem. But like, again, we live in a very like patriarchal society that wants to blame women for all of its evils, not blame the men who have, you know, sort of bought into structures of masculinity.
Well, we either have the portrayal for the mother with the son. That is usually that she's, overcrowded him and
Breastfed him till he was
breastfed him
14.
and took away all his drive and ambition. And then you have that other side for if there's a daughter in the situation, she's like competitive or
Slept with her
cruel.
boyfriend.
Yeah, slept with her boyfriend or has a Patricia Clarkson, southern accent. Where do you think you're going? That kind of thing. And
In that outfit.
yeah. You horning out tonight or something? But yeah, either way,
Shades of Carrie in here, I think.
there is no possible way a mother can win in a movie. And even when they're in like something like Wild,
Yeah.
they're great. They're so terrific. They're like gods, and then they die. That's when you know they're going to die. When they're
Well,
good.
there's been so many films where, you start out with mother being completely absent or, dying in the first 5 minutes. And away we go.
Yeah, exactly. Like every Disney movie has to knock off the mother
That's right.
right away.
I mean, I enjoy trauma-informed childhood films. I think that's really what it gets down to, is just how can we create as much grief as humanly possible to then pathologize and ignore. And mythologize as well as pathologize. It's great. I love our culture's relationship to motherhood.
Oh yeah,
It's beautiful.
super healthy.
It is not at all fraught. You can't have normal women. It's just not. Yeah,
You can't be like an average mom in a movie, right? They're just, there's got to be something going on.
Well, not in
seems.
a horror movie, that's for sure.
Well,
there's lots of sort of nondescript mothers in, sitcoms and
Yeah,
lighter comedy.
but
fare,
later on we'll do something to them.
Yeah.
We'll make fun of their wardrobe or their
Oh, yeah, I see what
hair,
you mean,
right?
yeah.
You see, there's always going to be some thing that they've done wrong, or or you come home and your mom ruined your room that you used to have. Why did you change it? What are you moving on? Like, it's always something. Sitcoms actually particularly bad, right?
That's true.
But I mean,
I recant, Lisa.
Yeah, well, I thought about this one.
I do think that like it's also often. I mean, they're pretty terrible depictions of like fatherhood as well. And in general, we don't have enough stories that are like sort of more nuanced depictions of what just caretaking looks like.
Yes.
Because
yes.
like a lot of people don't have like traditional mother-father roles in their lives. Like grandparents raise kids all the time, and aunts and uncles and all sorts of other people. And that's not even getting into like sort of like different dynamics of like what actually like, you know, sort of who is a mother and who is not a mother and who is a father, and you know, all these other complicated caretaking roles. Like I think that there is a sort of like more hopeful future wherein as we see more and more filmmakers and creators and a sort of like a more sort of like across the spectrum of sort of experiences sort of committed to film and digital and all these places, we're going to have like much more interesting stories.
I think so.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
Yeah.
But this is just a hope out there for anyone who listens to this. And, you know, as a screenwriter, maybe, and you're sitting down to write something, just be a little kind to the mom. She's gone through a lot. What a segue to our conversation.
What a segue. What a segue. I mean,
It's a tough job.
And I mean, you know, and with love to all of the times I've written about my somewhat complicated relationship with my mother, yeah, there's stuff.
Yeah.
There's stuff.
Yeah.
There's a fair chunk out there.
Yeah.
Especially as you mentioned, the horror genre.
Yep.
Boy, oh boy.
I mean,
These are rich and thick and chocolatey.
Yeah.
I
like
love
the fake blood pouring out of their bodies. Yes.
There is a part of me that loves, because I think families can do so much trauma and perpetuate so much trauma and hold so much trauma. There is a part of me that does love a horror film or like a thriller that keeps it real tight in the family. My name's Andrea Warner.
And I'm Lisa Christiansen.
And we've got our special guest here.
Yes. How many times is this for you?
This is like number 7.
Wow.
Whoa,
7.
you might be ahead
6 or
in
7,
the
maybe
you might be ahead in
6.
the punch card for the sandwich. Dorothy,
Yeah.
what end?
Yeah, where's my free hoagie?
Not till 12.
Free hoagie. Yeah, that's well. Might be able to get you some Lays earlier or
want a
something.
drink, too.
Yeah.
You're listening to Pop This. We are very excited today. I'll read your official bio in just a minute, or perhaps Lisa will.
Yeah, I can do that.
But we should say what we're going to talk about.
We should.
I feel like we've talked about around this movie so many times. It came up a lot last week when we were talking with our friend Rachel Fox about Halloween 2018. And now we're finally doing Babadook.
The Babadook.
The Babadook.
Yes.
Sorry. Do you say the Babadook or the Babadook?
I think
It's
it depends
Australian,
if you're Australian or not. Let's say Babadook.
Babadook, like an Australian accent.
I can't do an
G'day, Babadook. You know, like that.
Sounds too much like Marmaduke.
It does kind of.
I can't do an Australian accent. I'm sorry.
I don't seem to see a bio on this page.
Oh my goodness, we have not included.
Well, I'm just leaving then.
You just leave
Would you like
immediately.
to give us some of your life's highlights?
I mean, I'm gonna improvise a bio for you right now.
Okay, do
Okay.
it.
Dorothy Woodend has been writing about film forever. You are an expert.
I'm so old now, Andrea.
I mean, I didn't attach a time. I just said forever. You were the artistic programmer at DOXA, Documentary Film Festival, for a number of years. Now you are the arts and culture editor.
Yes.
At the Tyee.
At the Tyee.
And you still love movies.
I do.
Yeah.
And
now I'm kind of like, the free-ranging arts and culture critic, which means I get to go to everything.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
that's cool. You're our film critic.
Thanks.
You are like
I'll
our
always be
resident.
your real personal film critic.
My personal film critic.
And when we were going to do this, we knew that this is something you like.
Yeah. So here's what I did. Because I knew, I was like, I know that there's someone that I know who has a special affinity for this film. So what I did is I typed in the Babadook into my search in Facebook, and your review came up from a number of years ago with your personal recommendation to Vancouver, go see this film.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, Dorothy, she's our person.
There she is.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're joining us for this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's do a bit of background just in case. Because, I mean, there probably are quite a few people who haven't seen this one.
I had never seen it before, just for this.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't see scary films that often.
See, I do. And I'm not a full-on horror.
I watch a lot of horror
aficionado,
movies
but
too. Yeah.
I do watch a lot of them.
I don't. And so this has been, like, honestly, outside of, so I had already seen The Shining, but having to sit through Halloween 2018 was real tough. And then this, and then our next film that is going to end Feminist Horror Month. It's been quite a few weeks for me.
Oh,
yeah, I'm real tense.
Andrea,
real tense. I know.
Yeah, no. Well, this one to me is really scary. I found. So I'm just gonna do the background here. The Babadook is a 2014 Australian psychological horror film written and directed by Jennifer Kent in her directorial debut, and produced by Christina Seaton and Christina Moliere. The film stars Essie Davis, Noah Wiseman, Daniel Henschel, Haley McIlhenny, Barbara West, and Ben Winspear. It is based on the 2005 short film Monster, also written and directed by Kent.
I really like that. So this came out at the 2014 Sundance Film Festival, and it got so much attention and critical acclaim. It ended up grossing $10.3 million against a $2 million budget. Go little independent Australian film.
I think this is a really good-looking film, too.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's really well shot.
Yeah, it really is. And a directorial debut. But I guess she had a short film, so.
But I still love a directorial debut. Yeah.
Well, she'd gone and studied with Lars von Trier after, deciding to
that's
not
a
be an
penance.
actress. That's a
boy.
baptism by fire.
Yeah, that's a... She did some...
So she earned her stripes before she
kidding.
made the Babadook.
The dour ordained. There's been many.
I'll give a little plot summary. The Babadook is about a widow named Amelia who has trouble controlling her young son Samuel, who thinks there's a monster living in their house. Amelia reads Samuel a pop-up book, Mr. Babadook, and Samuel manifests the creature into a real-life monster. The Babadook may be the villain, but the film explores the pitfalls of parenting and grief in an emotional way. That write-up is from Mental Floss.
Yeah.
Good write-up.
Yeah, I don't think he manifests him, but we can talk about that.
I don't think he manifests him either.
No, I would disagree with that particular...
I would think the two of them had worked together on manifesting a lot of things. The mother and son.
As mother and sons do.
Yes, as they do, yeah.
They're one to do.
Yes.
So since this was my very first time seeing this movie, but you two had seen it before, did you... how do you feel about it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's your takeaway?
I haven't seen it for a number of years, but yeah, I remember really loving it when it first came out. Because it came, when I first saw it, my son was a bit younger. Mm-hmm. So you're coming out of that very visceral, physical experience of motherhood where, it's kind of, kill or be killed in some ways. So it really struck home in a very fundamental way for me.
I really marveled at the way it is a movie about grief. I know there is parenting, and that is a big part of it. But I'd never seen any story that really just full on thought about how we let sadness consume us to the point where we can't enjoy our life or what's in front of us.
Yeah.
To say that to someone, you see it sometimes. You might see it every once in a while with like a courtroom movie where somebody's anger or about something that's happened has consumed their life and they can't move on at all. But seeing it in this way, and like as you said, it's like so closed in and experience. You feel like you're experiencing this with her.
And again, it's that physicality, right, of Essie Davis, where you feel like she hasn't washed her hair in 4 days, and she's kind of coated with this sort of
which is what grief
film,
yes.
right? And that's that kind of miasma that's around her, where you can almost smell it, and you think, oh yeah, this woman is not right.
No. So there's so much going on here, but I guess the important part of understanding this story is that when she's on her way to deliver her son, there's a car crash and her husband dies during the crash. Mm-hmm. And since then, they don't celebrate her son's birthday, and he's about 6 or 7 now?
Yeah,
did they say?
He's 6, I think.
6. So for 6 years, she has just tried to parent this child who she resents terribly, and
feels guilty for resenting.
And also in a lot of grief about losing her husband.
But it's funny because you can tell that she loves him as much as she resents him.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Which is always like the sort of strange polarity of parenthood, right? Of wanting to like strangle your kid one moment and, pick them up and hug them the next. And you kind of ping pong between those two.
Yeah.
And on a moment by moment.
Yes.
Well, that's one of the things I thought actually I really marveled at about this movie, because I had only heard about it in like different passings and people recommending it and, stuff I'd read, but I had never seen it. So I had expected their relationship to be so much more complicated and for her to have a little bit more cruelty towards him, and she never does. Like she even when she's so upset and like until she's sort of possessed and brandishing a knife, she's really trying so hard, and she knows all the ways that she is failing him, and she knows all the ways she's been failed by this tragedy. And so when me watching this movie, and again, I do think it makes I think it makes a bit of a difference in terms of I didn't find this movie that scary, which is unusual for me because normally I'm scared by so many things. And so I don't know what it was about this movie that did not actually scare me that much.
Did you watch it during the day again, though?
No, I watched it at night. Huh. But like I part of it.
What about the scene where he's like descending from the light fixture over top of her? That didn't scare you?
It didn't scare me, and I think
coming
it's because,
out of that wall.
But I think it's because I had decided 100% already in my own brain that this was like a physical manifestation of both grief and anxiety, and because I was sort of seeing it less about like I sort of don't think that like he exists at all. Like I see it as like.
But that's most horror movies.
No, I know, but it feels.
Are always
it feels
about
much
is it
more,
real? Is it psychological?
But it feels more real in other movies. Like this to me felt very much like I was aware continuously, and then when it gets to the end and she's keeping the Babadook in the basement and she's like tending to him, I thought of that as like, okay, well she's finally got some like something she has found catharsis through whatever. And this is the way that we tend to sort of like try to keep grief and depression and anxiety at bay, is we try to bury it in the basement and we tend to it a little bit here and there so that it doesn't get out and control our lives anymore. And so I guess like I just never saw it as an actual physical threat. I was afraid that she was going to hurt. Like I was afraid she was going to hurt the child, and obviously when she ends up murdering the dog, like that was not great. But I was just never afraid of the Babadook itself.
I was afraid of her rage. It terrified me. And I was like, I mean, I still also jumped when it just the black face comes out. But just there was something so horribly sad that it was just almost too much. I mean, I don't mean like I didn't think the film worked. I just meant that it was so hard and sad and unbelievably tragic. I just couldn't.
But I think that's also what makes it a great horror film.
Yes.
Is that there's an emotional investment in those two characters that is, quite profound.
Yeah.
And that you don't want to see either one of them hurt. And that's where the risk and the, genuine fear, I think,
part of me
in.
feels it would have been less scary if they hadn't had that creepy basement. Why
Well, it's funny because I thought about this film in comparison to something like Hereditary, which I really, really, really did not like.
No, that was unbelievably
and again, there's the character of the mother
yeah.
and the son. And
I found that much scarier, but that's not to say that I didn't. I loved the Babadook. I really loved it, but I loved it in a different way, I think. Anyway, sorry.
But did you like Hereditary as well?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
But that I found genuinely
We're going to
scary.
have to fight now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We can fight. We can
Yeah.
totally fight. I think it's because of I think for me, it's always the score. And I didn't find the score that effective in this.
Oh.
Like, it doesn't use music in a way that, like, a very oppressive way.
Yeah.
It's very subtle. And it allows much more the actual, like, living space of, like, what the house sounds like. And it just didn't.
I felt with Hereditary, though, I had nothing to relate to at all. Like, their lives were so weird. I didn't understand at all what was going on in that movie.
Well, and like they didn't seem to me like real people.
No, they didn't.
at all.
Whereas this one here, this mother, what she was having to deal with, I just thought this is the most unfair, awful situation I've ever seen. Like, it just was, I just felt buried by it. And every time that monster came out, it was even worse. Like, I just, and you could just feel her trying to, like, how do I get rid of this? And that's why I just found it to be so, so scary, because I think it was just, I really didn't see how there was a way out. Until, like, and I think probably, in terms of a movie about grief, I've never, ever seen anything end in such a smart, thoughtful way, which is, you know what? You don't get rid of grief.
Yeah.
It's always there. And it's always ready to jump out if you don't mind it.
Like the scary dwarf and Don't Look Back.
Yeah, you just, you have to tend it.
And
It
the
will
Little Red
always
Riding
be
Hood.
there.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid of it, though, it will have the power over you again.
Well, and also if you deny it.
And deny it,
so
yeah.
often, like she didn't, and I don't know what kind of resources are available to her, but like she's on autopilot, right? Like
Yeah.
she's doing her best as a single mom. She's raising her kid. Her kid is a
Troubles
little bit of a
and-
weirdo.
yeah.
And they're just, she doesn't really know how to relate. She has very little support, like her sister and that party. Wow.
Yeah.
That felt very real on a
Yeah,
lot of levels.
yeah,
Like all of
yeah.
it feels very real.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like and so I think it's so good and it's so smart.
Well, and again, there's that huge and profound, loneliness or grief to be sure, but also loneliness
Yes.
in
Yeah.
a really,
Yes.
really quite striking fashion. And that it kind of reminded me of Let the Right One In.
Oh,
with the,
yeah.
another weird little kid.
Yeah.
Who the two of them kind of reminded me of each other in some ways.
Oh,
Well,
interesting, yeah.
I think it's like the isolation of her depression because she's not getting any help. She's
No.
not, and I mean, who knows what kind of help would even be available? Like
Even
there's
that
a lot
man
of people-
at the hospital,
the
he
guy
can't really.
who's
That's a
flirting
lot.
with her, like he can't do so much.
There's
like
this is a lot,
you're walking into quite a situation.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot. Yeah. But like it's so fascinating to me that like people don't show up until someone has decided that she's kind of suddenly finally like a danger to her child, and then they show up not with any offers of assistance or anything, like not with any actual coping strategies, just with like the lingering threat.
But then for a lot of
But
people,
again, that's what keeps it very real, right?
Yes, no,
'Cause
it
that's
keeps it very
probably
real.
genuinely
think-
what would happen.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's really smart to have this 6 years after, because I think there's also that thought out there that you'll be over this one day.
Well,
Do you know what I mean, though? It's like a-
people do expect you to get
Yes,
over stuff,
yes.
and you just
And so making it 6 years later tells us how long you can let grief really consume you if you don't, have, like you say, have services or people to talk to and you isolate yourself. And I think that's why this could have easily been just a movie about, a year later or something with that perfectly timed anniversary, 1 year later
Yeah.
or something, right?
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
kinds of things. Whereas this was just telling, giving us a sense of, unless you try and work this out, it will be with you forever.
Yeah, and I think like I don't know, it's just I think because it's such a heartbreaking film, I was sort of more like really more sort of involved in the emotional aspect, and that's where like I don't know why, but like that's not I guess where my fear like my fear response sort of lives. Like I like doing the work of working through all that tough emotional stuff, and it's not for everybody, and it's not easy, and I like it's none of that is good, but like I guess I really thought that like this movie just felt like so much more just so like it was a little bit clever and sneaky in how it got us to really look at the world. It sort of hides itself behind a horror film in a lot of ways, but it's actually just maybe one of the best
but that's
movies
what the
about.
best horror films do, right?
Well, they do, but
they
I
don't
just
really
find
look
that, like,
sometimes
Unless
like
it's
horror
just a
films.
dull slasher movie.
Well,
but
no, we're talking the best horror film.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, the best horror movies are the ones that aren't. They're always about interior feelings, about things that are going on in you.
Yeah,
There's a
I guess
really
it's-
good Iranian one. I don't know if you saw that one.
Oh yeah. Oh Lord, what was that called again? It'll come to me.
You
in
know
a
which
sec.
one I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's the same thing. And that would be good for our Feminist Horror Month next year then. But that idea that, are the demons on the outside or are they inside?
They're always on the inside.
They're always on the
Always on the
inside, and
inside.
those are the better horror movies.
Yeah. I guess maybe like I keep feeling like I've seen a few that I really love.
Or even like It Follows is another
terrific. We
great
did that,
one.
yeah.
right?
But like I haven't seen one and I guess I haven't seen dramas that deal with grief as well as this one does.
Yeah. No, I know. And just, and I think just that feeling when, she's offered up, her husband's there going, I'll come back. And here's what you have to do.
Maybe it's less dealing with grief and at least acknowledging that it is complicated. That grief lives in like these really like deep-seated, ugly, not tidy ways. Like, because we see in like the end of movies, most traditional films that deal with like the death of like, a love lost or whatever, like you move on at the end of the film. That's part of the process of like a movie. And this is not a movie that really like is going to give you that. Like, not, you can't always sort of deal with your grief with like a sort of battle to the death of a bunch of stab wounds and a bunch of biting. Although,
if only you could.
If only you could.
Yes.
But it like really it acknowledges the fact that like grief is much more complicated and deep and nuanced and awful than I think we give much space to that.
Yeah, and it may as well be, it's so horrific to be in the throes of grief, it may as well be a monster with a top hat screaming in your face and lurking around corners. I mean, that's really, in so many ways, what is happening to you physically.
Yeah.
You are not even in control anymore of what's happening because you can't see anything.
Yeah. When I always think of, when people talk about like the black dogs of depression, right, actually giving a physical form or a physical manifestation, because otherwise it's so overwhelming and kind of, unplaceable. So you almost need to kind of locate it in this creature, this thing. That you can kind of say, this is the thing I must fight.
Well, yeah, no one with depression ever says something like, well, that's done. I'm over. I was an alcoholic and now I'm done with that. We're through. We're finished. It's a constant.
Yeah.
It's down in the basement and it's hiding under there.
It's just waiting.
It's just waiting. And if you don't every once in a while go down there and
feed
just
it some worms.
Feed it some worms and just go, you know what? I'm in control here. And recognize that it's pretty easy to let that guy back out again. And I think that was that, like in some horror movies don't end well, and
that's kind of an understatement.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But seeing a birthday party and the worms.
This one ended really nicely. I thought it was a very smart ending. And and endings are hard to nail. Like I also don't want to like distract from the fact that like it also is a movie about, I think, single motherhood and like how parenting is not, it's just not all roses and like Instagrams and like yummy mummy clubs. Like I feel like this, I know. I say this as
nobody told me that.
I say this as a child-free woman. But like it felt like it actually like allowed us to sort of like witness and actually like prioritize the story of like how parenting is deeply unglamorous work. That is
like Dorothy
really
said,
hard.
1 minute happy, 1 minute sad, and I mean that's
also really like very, very physical in a way that you never expected.
Yes,
right? Like breastfeeding is a pain in the in the nip,
in the clogged duct. But that's what the director said she wanted to explore as well. But she doesn't have children, she said.
No, but she was saying
she got it though.
She got it for sure. I just thought that was interesting.
She said her friends were like, you gotta like do better. Like basically you have to like witness, or you have to like tell the stories of parenthood even though you don't have children. And I feel like she listened to the right people to like really make it clear. And I think like, I don't know, when I talk to my friends who have kids and who have new babies and people who later tell me about like, the sort of the postpartum that they sort of like suffered through silently for some like, and I mean, I can't, it just breaks my heart because like it feels like it's something that we know happens and we know exists, and like we're still sort of like making new moms feel ashamed about it.
Yeah,
like
I think a lot of women suffer still in silence, right?
Yeah,
and that sense of shame and that sense of kind of a failure. That you're supposed to be, here's your brand new beautiful baby. You should be happy. And it's like it doesn't always work out that way, right? And I think people who are suffering quite profoundly from postpartum, I think, it's hard to reach out. I think when you're really stuck.
Yeah, and I guess you don't know how to reach out either because you're just like you're in that depression place, and it's just extra complicated when you do have the pressure of like, yes, I carried
and then
this.
it's just normal things like your life is done for like at least the next 2 or 3 years and you can't sleep at all. Even if you weren't nursing, you'd still have to feed this thing that won't live by a schedule at all. Like, it's just going to wake up whenever it wants. Like, it doesn't have a job, right? It's just like, I'm going to sleep now and I'll sleep whatever I want, right? And so all of that, and people try and come to your home, and it's like, I'm kind of bored. There's nothing going on. The baby's screaming. Like, it's a whole adjustment to every, like, I think sometimes it's a little I know postpartum depression exists, and I know people have it, but I think even the more
mundane stuff, you're right? Like sitting on the playground with your kid who refuses to leave, and you've been there for 8 hours, and you think,
and he kicks you and punches you
and screams, "I hate you! I don't love you! Help me! I don't know this woman!" Like,
yeah, and I'm not eating this food; it's garbage, and then throwing it across the living, like, those things are also really worthy of collapse.
Yeah.
But never mind an actual, diagnosis of a depression, right? So add those two things together too, right?
But I think at the same time, there's that pressure, right? Of this should be like the happiest event in your life. Like,
can't you put aside your own needs and wants for 2 years?
Your crowning achievement as a, as
like
a
the thing
woman.
that most people can do on the whole planet, like somehow is like.
Well, and
sorry.
Like the whole,
I mean.
So I think that's what makes it really, really tricky, because you can't say this is really awful and hard a lot of the time.
I think also just the way, this will seem like a weird segue, but follow me here. When we
We're on this journey with you.
Follow
okay,
you.
all right.
This journey.
When we heard that Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, called his wife mother, right?
Yeah.
It took away all her identity, her sexuality, her individuality, right? Just calling her that. Like, she was just this vessel.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say that word.
Yeah. And that, I think, is almost a fear, too, once you've had this child, right? Mm-hmm. Because then there's that other pressure, like, well, did you stop eating? Because you got to lose that weight. And, to me, more stomach's still flat. And
but also the world goes on without you, right? If you're not working, it's like, you have no function other than to take care of this kid. And that's really shocking.
That show Catastrophe did a great job of that. Did anyone watch that?
I still haven't watched it, no, but I will.
Catastrophe, have you seen it?
Oh, no, I haven't seen it yet.
With Rob Delaney and Sharon Horgan. Oh my, it's just so perfect on that. In fact, one of my favorite things about that is that she is like, she's a whole lot of person there, right? With a lot of opinions. And when she joins the baby group and everyone hates her.
That happened to me.
Yeah, because they're all
I thought we were going to get together and talk about anything other than babies.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh no, this is all we're going to talk about.
So she makes one friend, and then that one friend in the baby group is like, yeah, none of us like you. You're like... She's like, I've been rejected. But of course she would be. Because this isn't the one thing she ever wanted to do. It's fine. We'll keep the kid. We'll do this. Mm-hmm. But, I would like to talk about some other things. And no, they are into baby group.
Well, and it goes on, right? As you kind of go through elementary school, and there'll be like the pack of yummy mummies, and they're like, everybody had the matching Lululemon coats. Yeah. And they'd be there was like 2 topics of conversation. You could talk about shopping, you could talk about skiing in Whistler. And I always remember,
where was your baby group? This sounds good.
Which might seem fun at first.
Yes, exactly.
But it's pretty Stepford, right?
Yeah, no. Perfect analogy. That's the one there, right? Yeah. And that's where mother comes in, right? And so, a movie like this, just, already being a single parent and the grief of losing your husband and your kids gone some kind of place that you don't even really understand.
Yeah, and you don't recognize yourself.
And you do not recognize how you're dealing with this. I mean, in some ways, like that, I did say this. Did you watch the movie again then?
The Babadook?
Yeah.
No, not. I will. Actually, I want to go back and see it again.
I said I won't. I mean, that was...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it stayed in my head really, really strongly. Yeah. I did, read the synopsis again and watch the trailer again. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I don't want to do this again. Yeah. I'm so thrilled that the movie's there and that people will experience it. Mm. But I just thought, I don't know if I want to feel those things again. Huh. You do?
Yeah. No, well, I thought about it that way. I don't want to go back to that place, Lisa.
I mean, I'm happy. Like that ending, like I say, I think that ending actually, I think this movie would be probably really, if you had a grief support group, that could handle horror movies, I think this is probably a really helpful movie to deal with grief, to understand how it can look when you're in the throes of it.
Well, when reading a lot of people's commentary about the film, saying this film really genuinely helped me when I was in a very dark place, right? And I thought that actually kind of surprised me, because I didn't think about it at the time, but revisiting it, I can see it now.
This is my first thought when I got to the end. I was just like, even though I was sitting at home, I wanted to stand up at my couch and just, bravo! Like, that nailed it. You really? Can I phone someone? Is the director available? Well, I'd just like to let you know.
So the director herself, she said she drew inspiration from her own personal experience. Quote, "In my experience, having suffered from depression, it's often feeling like life should be better than what it is, rather than accepting what it is. For me, The Babadook has been a very positive film about integrating darkness. I wanted to give people the sense that ultimately the fear of darkness is greater than actually facing it." And I thought it did that really beautifully. And I think that, I can appreciate certainly, as a story about, sort of witnessing single motherdom in these, with all of these different, factors, weighing down on you and trying to, survive it and grapple with it and deal with it and not lose yourself entirely. But for me, and where I'm at in my life, I was so much more about watching how people navigate depression, anxiety, and grief, and what you do with that so that it doesn't just completely subsume you. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's so much, I think, in grief, and I'm stealing from Joan Didion, but that magical thinking, which is, I guess, must be some part of our grief process that we need to go through initially. I don't know. But when you think about that and you watch what she's going through, there's so much of her wishing that didn't happen. And how can I, and she's stuck in that place. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's a funny thing about human beings, right? Is that denial of death, even though it's happened. I mean, it's happened to every one of us, where you think, how can that person be dead?
Yeah.
That can't be real. And that, inability to kind of take it in a real way I always kind of find surprising, even when it's happened to me a number of times, where you think, oh, I'll go visit so-and-so, and it's like, oh, yeah, they're dead.
Yeah, yeah.
You think, that perpetual shock over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again of always having to kind of, take in that information again and process it again and again in order to make it, stick.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that's what this film was kind of always bringing that up. That seeing her husband, mm-hmm. Come back to her. We can do this. What a manifestation in her head, right? That she has already created that scenario. Mm-hmm. That maybe, we can turn this around.
Well, and I also really appreciated how, what ultimately saves her is, is that love for her son, which, I mean, maybe that's not 100% fair to all of the people whose depression does prove insurmountable. It's because it's that.
Well, but she had this. Hers isn't quite depression out of nowhere. This is an actual event in her life.
No,
right?
but I mean, there's different types of depression for sure. But it's not always. There's not always going to be something that can pull you back, depending on where you are in your journey. And so maybe it's a bit oversimplistic to have it be that her son is reminding her, we swore we wouldn't give up on each other. We swore, that kind of thing. But I appreciate that as the sort of escapist kind of fairy tale that still acknowledges doing the work of continuing to grapple with this for the rest of your life.
But I think that's what makes the film for me, because it's so much about motherhood as an act of heroism, really.
It is, yeah.
Of fighting your own darkness, your own depression, your own sense of bereavement and grief, and coming back to the sense of protecting your kid, right? And that instinct proving stronger almost than anything else, which for me is the sort of ringing, triumphant end of it, is that she's managed to do it, right? And she's managed to do it through, this sheer kind of that scream of rage at the end, right?
Yeah.
Where it just is so cathartic, and she's letting it out.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was the moment in the film.
She's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
I thought both of them did a great job.
They
Like,
did,
that kid
yeah.
was great, but she's wonderful.
Just the tortured face, that again, like the relatability to all of it was almost too much. And I think what's interesting, I feel like sometimes the film sort of hinges on that one sentence that as a mother you can never say, and it's the worst possible thing, which in movies always shows up, which is, I wish you were never born.
Yeah.
Right? That's a constant refrain in these kinds of movies where either the child yells it or the mother yells it. I bet you wish I was never born.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the mother has to go, no, of course not.
I love you, my
You're
darling.
the best. That was so great. I'm glad you happened.
But it's funny because all of my favorite horror movies, or a lot of them, actually have those sort of like triumphant mother roles. Like The Shining is another one, right? Where you kind of feel like she triumphs in the end. She fights for the life of her child.
We just did like such a deep dive.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it just dropped like today, basically, which we're recording a couple weeks ahead. But like, we did such a deep dive on Wendy Torrance, and it felt so good.
Yeah, finding out that she was a different in the book.
Yeah,
a much stronger. Read the book?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
I read it actually not that long ago.
Oh, and so how were your thoughts then watching the movie, knowing the other way?
Well, they're two very different creatures in many ways.
Yeah.
And I do find the film again, it's like the music for me that gets me every single time.
Yeah, the music
like
gets
the
me too.
score is just insanely great. So I mean, but again, I love Shelley Duvall, so I have, a special soft spot for her in that film, even if she wasn't quite, the sort of strongest character, or strong as she was in the book. But I still like her.
I love that character. I mean, again, still haven't read the book, but I love the character in the film, and especially with this like newer appreciation for like that strong women exist in all kinds of packages.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's also too another frustrating thing too, because that you said active heroism, right? So people don't have it in them, right? But this idea that I'm just like a mother bear, and people know that expression. They'll always say that, right? They're out in the woods, and if you see two cubs, you're doomed. I mean, that's unless you've got an exit strategy really quick, because we all know this mama bear thing is ferocious, and I don't even know if it's that true. I have no idea. I know it is true. It's happened, but I don't know quite. But then women use that analogy and things, and there might be, some women out there who are like not up to that task, and then there's that whole issue to deal with too.
Yeah, one of the things that I like about this movie, and I think that this is an unusual pivot from the film, but how the Babadook became a gay icon.
I always found that kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
I enjoy this quite a lot. So, Andrea Gin has put together a little handy sort of like snippet about how it all happened. But October 2016, a Tumblr user named Instagram or Landstagram, I'm not sure, posted a whenever someone says the Babadook isn't openly gay, it's like question mark. Did you even watch the movie? And then added, Carol, unlike the Babadook, was not a gay movie and was about a scary monster bothering a blonde, stressed out mom. To date, the post has received over 91,000 likes and reblogs. And then BuzzFeed picked it up as well. And Instagram defended his reading of the film as a movie about a gay man who just wants to live his life in a small Australian suburb. It may be just a movie to you, but to the LGBT community, the Babadook is a symbol of our journey. I am here for this reading, and I love to see like a sort of like a movie take on these like sort of weird secondary and third and tertiary lives. Yeah. Because who are we to say?
Also, at a certain point, children's books are quite dull, so I think it caught on to that well.
That children's book,
the constant reading of it, and it would be great if books changed though as you read them.
That children's book looked amazing.
Yeah,
by the way. Like I would.
Does it exist? Did they do that? Because that's so creepy. Hey.
So creepy.
Scary
to have made the Babadook into an actual children's book.
I don't like this idea.
And then you open it up at a party.
Lisa, no. Don't go there.
I love that idea, and also we were wondering about that ourselves, but
Yeah.
I couldn't find any.
Oh, no,
information.
really? Well, I would be. Just,
I'm sure it does, but I
Yeah.
don't know
I
about
still
it.
don't quite get the whole gay icon in that thing, though.
How
I mean,
I
it
feel
was
like I'm missing something.
I think it was just someone deciding it was, and then
Yeah.
like the community swelled around it and was like,
Oh.
yeah, sure, we'll take it.
Yeah, just.
I like
guess.
Okay.
it. It's just, in the same way that like Gritty is now like the face of something. That Philadelphia hockey mascot. Anyway.
Oh,
It looks
the
a little
the
bit
orange
like
guy?
Babadook.
It does look a
You
little
said
bit
that.
like-
Yeah,
he does look like
instead of the
Babadook,
black,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It's all in the
also-
eyes, I think.
It's this like the slightly like hairy looking sort of shape.
Yeah.
It's an interesting. Like there had to have been a conversation about designing this monster
Oh, with his top hat and
with
his
his
little bow
top
tie
hat and the teeth and
Yeah.
the like. What is that? Does it come from some mythology? Is it?
It looked
Well,
like
it's a little Jack the Ripper-esque.
it's a
Yeah.
little Jack the
Yeah.
Ripper meets Danny DeVito's The Penguin.
And learn to play music with Jack White
Uh-huh.
because he kind of has that look to him as well. But there's
Yeah.
something dapper.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
there's definitely
Together.
something dapper.
He's got a nice frock coat.
Yeah, he's got,
Yeah.
he's is it like it's like Old English or like I mean it is not like it's a very stylized
It's like a Victorian sort
Yes,
of
it's
era kind of thing.
chimney sweep or something, but he
Yeah,
has
yeah.
a definite lurk. Is it the lurking? I don't know what it is, but he definitely has a look to him. And it's not like Beetlejuice or something,
No.
which was kind of madcap and fun.
Yeah, no, I thought he was beautifully stylized.
He's got
Yeah.
the dark dandy about him.
A dark dandy. I like that. Yeah. So I don't know what that came from. I didn't do any.
I think that's Victorian. But again, that
Oh.
harkens back to Jack the Ripper, right?
Yeah.
That sort of era of elegance and
Of-
murder.
yeah. Okay.
Elegance and murder. Our
as
favorite.
as they go together.
Our
but,
favorite.
Favorite things.
We do have to sort of start wrapping up, unfortunately. We love to end our episode saying, does this film pop?
It pops and pops and pops you right in the eye.
Yeah. I would just say be forewarned for how much it'll pop because
Yeah.
it's a
It'll
lot.
Pop your heart.
Yeah, if you are, just thinking that we're underselling this, we're not. This
No,
is
honestly, this
really
is-
quite. Even if you're not terrified by just the jump out stuff, which there's lots of,
Yeah.
it is just a lot to absorb. To really, if you want to, as you said, go into these feelings and even process how your own experience. I think that's one other thing it did. Like you were saying about having to think about people who are dead and reminding yourself of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think this is a movie that will bring up an awful lot of things for people.
Oh, I think it should absolutely come with like content warnings
Yeah.
at the wazoo. Yeah, no, take care of yourself while you're watching this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's if you really do bother to think about this movie, it's a lot to just think about, and maybe it'll be good though. As I said, maybe you'll say, hey, I should really be throwing some worms
I'm
to
going
this.
to call my mother.
Yeah, I'm gonna call my mother. Thank her for
think,
that
like-
time that she triumphed over the Babadook.
Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah.
And getting into therapy faster if you
Yeah,
can, like finding your
exactly.
resources, doing your
And if you're
doing your
about to have a
steps.
baby, whoa, it's a wild ride for all of you out there.
Good
so there you
luck.
go. Good
Yeah.
luck. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it's a real. Yeah, it's a real situation.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, honestly though, if you are about to have a baby and you have like a little bit of like a macabre sense of humor like I do, please make your shower Babadook themed.
Whoa. Oh, that is dark.
And then-
I'm not coming to the.
And then invite me.
Whoa, boy.
We also love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. Dorothy, as our honored guest, would you like to go first?
Oh, my Lord.
We can come back to you.
Come back to me. I've been seeing so much. So, I have one.
Okay, never mind. We're not coming back to you. You go for it.
Bong Joon-ho's Parasite.
Oh.
Is it a horror movie too?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Well, sort of.
Psychological
yeah,
thriller?
Again, a family, class.
Korean?
Korean. Yeah.
They do good horror movies.
It's
Yeah.
really good. Really good.
Yeah, okay.
I loved it.
The Parasite.
It's just called Parasite.
Like Joker.
Yep.
Just
There's no
Parasite.
more thes
There's
around.
no more just getting rid of. What was the Babadook, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
It is the Babadook.
But that was 5 years old, so.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say that after we have traumatized you with this movie, I just want to remind everyone that we are mid-cycle in the British and the Canadian Bake Off.
Oh, there you
I
go.
thought you were going to say the election.
Yeah, I know.
No, that's also another antidote.
This will probably be like after the election has already been decided.
If you've been troubled with certain people telling you that it's hard to talk to people who are different from you or you're competitive with, you can do this in a proper way, in a bake-off situation.
Yep.
Where even though you'd like to win, that you are so hurt that means Jay, who made a fantastic bread event, has to go home, and you will suffer for a long time, and it's a beautiful show. And just remind yourself of the beautiful people that do live in your midst.
That's nice.
That's sweet.
And I'm gonna recommend something that's also about sort of like, just being nice and tending to your feelings and taking care of yourself. Alicia Tobin, who is a comedian and writer in Vancouver, who we love very much. She has her debut collection of essays is out, and it is called So You're a Little Sad, So What? Nice Things to Say to Yourself on Bad Days and Other Essays. It's a great book. I loved it so much. It really gave me some it allowed me to have a little bit of space to appreciate things that I don't normally take the time to pay attention to. It reminded me to sort of slow down a little bit, and it offered me different views of the world that I don't normally have. So I really appreciated it, and I recommend it highly.
Excellent. All right, I will read that.
Yeah. Dorothy, do you want anyone to come and find you online, or would you prefer people stay away? Those are your choices.
Oh, okay. That's very binary of you,
yes.
Andrea.
Yeah.
No, come on down. Come visit the Tyee. Yeah, we got all
kinds
kinds
of... Unless you're the Babadook, then stay away.
No, then don't come.
Yeah.
But no, the more the merrier for sure.
So it's the Tyee.ca?
Yep.
And do you want anyone to find you on Twitter?
I think I'm just Dorothy Woodend on Twitter. Yeah.
Perfect.
As far as I recall, anyway.
Well,
sounds right.
Come find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Rate and review us 5 stars on iTunes. 5 stars.
I'm always trying for the subliminal. There.
One day we'll read them, I swear, maybe.
That was subtle.
Yeah. We're very subtle. I don't know if you noticed that. This will also be coming out a couple weeks before the Vancouver Podcast Festival is back November 7th to 10th. If you are in and around the Lower Mainland or wherever you are and you want to come and hang out with us, we're going to do a little meetup during the festival, and we'll have information about that. We're not doing a live recording this year, but we're going to do a little meetup with people if everyone wants to hang out. And there's lots of great stuff happening at the festival. So many excellent main stage shows and free panels.
And you love podcasts. You're here. So
yeah, you're already listening to us,
Done.
so come and hang out.
Yeah.
And Lisa.
Yes. Find us, and but don't come find us at the library where we record, because we're always very busy. Andrea Gin is our producer, and she's very busy too.
Yeah, we're just, yes.
We're so busy.
Busy
so
women.
Busy. Thank you all.
Thank you.